let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are making the Dreamer bag, the Dreamer pack, the Dreamer mini backpack from Fierce Kittens. I love it so much. This was a labor of love. This has taken me several days. What is the cat messing with? Anyway, I absolutely love this. I probably shouldn't have done both pockets, but I did. I followed the interfacing instructions. I messed this up. If you're watching me now, this is me telling you I messed up. I probably won't edit it. It still worked out, but your zipper is supposed to be here. And I was like, surely you don't bind the zipper, but you do, and that's okay. It works out. I'm not mad at it. But I do think if you're going to add both the 3D pocket and a zipper overlay, maybe shorten the overlay and move it up a little bit. But I'm a sucker for pockets, so I did it. I can't tell if it's crooked or not, but I love the shape of this bag. I think you will too. I hope you grab this pattern. Let's get into sewing it. Yeah, I did that wrong. We are going to get started on the Dreamer pack. I'm super excited to make this. I have been cutting it out for what feels like days. So I'm gonna get started on prepping some zipper tape. Super quick, just cutting the lengths noted within the pattern. I am adding a front zipper pocket along with having the 3D front pocket. So I'm just going to read within the pattern supply list what size zipper we need for that 3D pocket. So it looks like 9 inches for that one. And that is the, like, oh, no, you could cut that one potentially a little bit longer since it's a gusseted piece. So, looks like this little section I purchased from Geeky Hardware was the perfect amount. I'm gonna go ahead and add pulls to those zippers as well. For my 3D pocket on the front, I do want 2 zipper pulls, as well as my main zipper. So I'm going to add those in opposite directions. My front zipper, just need the 1 pull. We're not adding any other pockets to this bag, but she states within the pattern that you can absolutely add your own zipper pockets internally, slip pockets internally, that kind of a thing. And then another thing we want to be really mindful of is our seam allowances. They do change from 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch here and there, but she does a pretty good job at saying like, hey, change your seam allowance here. All right, that one's not perfect. Better, okay. So we're gonna start with our front pocket, and I am doing both the overlay and the 3D pocket. I think I already mentioned that, but just to make it very clear. So overlay, zipper lining. The other change that I'm making is I don't have square rings here and I don't have slide adjusters here. So I'm going to be using these 1-inch locking slide adjusters that are best for backpacks anyway. There's nothing wrong with the other hardware option, but I know this works really well. I have already marked out where that zipper overlay goes, but kind of can't see it now. That's okay. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, but I know that it's very close to that 3D pocket. But I also know that I have the ability to adjust it just a little bit. Keep in mind you're going to have seam allowance, etc. All right, so I've got that laid on top there. And we're going to sew around that outside edge. And I'm thinking I may want to add my 3D pocket before I finish this part so that we're not also combating this lining. You know, you should just go to bed when your overlay stitching looks like that. That's okay though. All right, this music is not working for me. So I'm going to tie this off. I'm going to cut away the inside, and then we're going to move on to that 3D pocket. I'll go ahead and prep my zipper pocket lining while I'm here. But yeah. Okay, so we're going to cut this. Yes, looks good. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and just quickly prep that lining. I'm going to put my zipper tape right side up on the right side of my lining. I'm going to sew that in place, 1/4 inch seam allowance. We will repeat that on the other piece of zipper tape, so right side up. The lining fabric I'm using, the right side is the silkier side. This is the Renew recycled lining fabric. Renew, 100% recyclable. Renew canvas. I'm repeating it so I know what I'm saying. So we'll stitch that into place. And now, you could iron this flat, but I'm going to go ahead and stitch it flat. This might not be some people's jam, but it's my jam. I'm going to start where I'm going to be zipping to. Pressing my fabrics flat, and then I'm gonna sew over the end of my zipper. And this is so that later, when I'm putting this all together, if I move my zipper pull, it's not gonna fall off. And I could even do the other end so that it's not going anywhere. You'll see those layers sit nice and flat, and then we can add some double-sided tape just right over those stitches. Okay. Setting this aside for now, because like I said, I think it's gonna be way easier to put that front pocket on and then just do a couple of stitches instead of having to deal with pushing it out of the way the entire time. So, front pocket, 3D pocket. We'll find our gusset pieces for that. Huzzah. I have them all clipped together. And then this is our zipper tape. So we're gonna attach our zipper tape to piece J first. Pick whichever side you want. I'm adding double-sided tape to the right sides of my fabric where I will be attaching that zipper. I'm laying this face down. And repeating that on the other side. I probably should have measured this rectangular piece and cut it to the measurement. I just was like, it's a pattern piece, I'm gonna cut it. And I'm not great at cutting rectangular pattern pieces from the pattern piece. I don't know why. Okay, now we're gonna press that open and top stitch. The seam allowance for that was 1/4 inch. And you can top stitch the whole thing. I'm gonna wait until we get there. We'll push those zippers on into the center and kind of trim that up so that it's all even, including my zipper tape. I generally don't love my zipper tape to be the exact size, but I think for accuracy, it's kind of what we're gonna need to do. And then just make sure you prevent any fraying. So now we can set our gusset pieces together. And this is 1/4 inch seam allowance. Linings right sides together. And with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, it's even more important that your zipper tape is not going to fray over time. So make sure you just take that second to singe the ends with a lighter. And then we'll open that up. Ooh, it's so pretty. And top stitch through. If you are worried that your materials might be a little too bulky, if you have ever made a knotted threads co pattern, you could use some of those bulk reduction techniques within this. And then we are going to baste at 1/8 of an inch all the way around that gusset along the bottom edge, lining up your exterior and your lining. You do not need to stitch onto the zipper tape. And just trim all of those threads, and then we'll sew around the entire gusset for the rest. And then I have some excess on this panel, so trim that down. With 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, you do not have room to have those little excess pieces hanging out. Okay, we're gonna mark our center at the top where the zipper is and isn't. And down at the bottom of that. And then we have those 4 markings on this piece as well, and I'm just going to make the teeniest little snip there where that's going to go, because I need to put these right sides together. This would be a really cute place for like a name tag, but I think I'm just gonna kind of hide mine. So we're gonna baste all that together. I don't know, I feel like I took forever to perfect how I wanted to cut this, so I really don't want to mess it up with a name tag. But there's no other part on this bag with how I'm cutting it where there's room for that. So just keep that in mind for yourself. Okay. Oh no. I had cut this one for this part. That's okay. I'm just gonna take a moment to trace around it and make it look nice. And then we'll use that one. Okay. So yeah, that'll be for the lining of the front pocket. So this is both exhilarating and terrifying to make this pocket. I have definitely done these before. I don't know if I've done one this small, but I'm gonna trust the process. Okay. Yeah, I did that wrong. Okay. So I'm gonna line up my center marks, and then I'm gonna line up the bottom center mark. I'm gonna clip along the top just a couple more. And then I made that little cut where my gusset seam should be. So I'm going to clip that. Now if that gusset seam doesn't match perfectly for me, I'm okay with that because I can make some small adjustments so long as it's equal on both sides. But I think we're going to be okay. And this gets sewn with 1/4 of an inch to start. And then we're going to add some binding, but I think the binding is also attached at 1/4 of an inch. It's not specifically spelled out in the pattern though. Okay, so as we get to the bottom, I'm laying it flat here so that I can press it into the corners. And if you're scared, you can even baste this on first and then go in with your 1/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna do that. She says you can even use staples if you'd like. I have been cut by one too many staples, so we are gonna baste. I did not need to make any snips into the fabric, but you absolutely can if you don't have much stretch. And I'm using my screwdriver just to help set any of those spots flat. And now that that's on, honestly, I'll just go in with my binding. I think it'll be okay. She does not specifically say, like I said, which seam allowance to bind with. She uses fold over elastic for her binding, and I'm going to be using this. And I might use a different method to bind the main part of the bag. Now she says just clip one spot and then get started. Like, I'm going to try it. I'm just going to try it. But I do think I'm going to use, I don't know. 3/8 would be my standard for this, but slowly stitch along the gusset edge with 1/4 inch, okay? Yeah, it just doesn't say. Later on, she says 1/4 inch for the binding. I just hate to think of all the excess we're leaving off on that edge. And this isn't like the waterproof canvas that you can cut away later. I'm just like, I don't know. Okay, yeah, this is not my jam. I love it for her though. And it does make sense that if you're using that fold over elastic that you can just kind of stretch it to fit and sew around the edge. I have a binding that's a little bit wider as well, and I'm excited to try it out for putting the bag together, because it adds a little bit more structure since this is a thinner binding, and it kind of helps play out the binding method Knotted Threads Co. uses, but without using waterproof canvas that may eventually fray. But we'll see how it goes. Oh boy, this looks like a mess. Luckily, when you turn it and tuck that seam up in there, you're not gonna see it. It'll be fine. We'll tuck that under. I mean, it's fine. It looks great. Hopefully from this side it looks way better. Alrighty. Oh yeah, it looks fine. Not the prettiest thing, but it'll do. Alrighty. So now is where we're gonna wanna transfer some other pattern markings for our piece if you didn't already, and that is the 3D gusset top stitch. So kind of pressing through, imprinting into the vinyl, moving that along. And so this is gonna get sewn on there like that. So you would mark your centers as well. Hopefully everything is centered, because I definitely eyeballed it for the most part. Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. And I am adding literally the teeniest, tiniest little snip. You can see up here, we do not have much room. Like, I have just enough seam allowance, so I might even be top stitching through that. Might not work, but we'll see. We're gonna keep that zipped. I have my bottom center marked, so I'm gonna kind of start there. We're gonna be putting right sides together. And this is going to be attached to your zipper. So you could also maybe use a little bit of double-sided tape. And she states to clip it with the lining side up. And so we've got where that gusset should start. And then she states you'll want to add some staples. And I could definitely see that with this zipper tape. But we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe you don't tell me what to do, Georgia. No, I'm just kidding. So this gets sewn together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to add our lining at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So she states to sew it kind of like this. Maybe I live dangerously. Ooh, and then I break a clip. Leaving your needle down. Slow. That 1/4 of an inch is not much room for error. I'm going to move my zipper pulls past where I've sewn. Just double check everything's lined up still. I don't think I was breathing like that whole time. Like, are you okay? But we'll get it straightened out soon. So make our center crease. And I'll reread this part of the pattern just to make sure I have it correct, that this gets sewn on with 1/8 of an inch, but I was pretty sure. And you basically follow that same method around the outside edge. Just to be, oh. Place. Okay. Unfold piece A away from the pocket and place it on the table right side up. Finger press or iron the seam allowance toward the pocket lining away from the outer edge of piece A. Top stitch just inside the pocket's side of the seam, just inside. Oh, okay. Okay. Through the gusset is what that looks like to me. Not this, but later. Okay. So definitely don't use a vinyl that's gonna wrinkle. You're gonna have a bad time. So right now this bag is gonna need some therapy. It has seen some things. That's how I'm feeling lately. What? I hope I don't have that wrong. Let's just look at the front picture, shall we? Should we? Yeah, I did that wrong. Okay. Well, I just didn't think you would bind right up against the zipper tape. That's on me. But, no, that's not great. What I can do is I can just stitch along the gusset portion, because I'm not mad at that. It's not great, but once I add the foam, it will be a little bit better. But I can just, because what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to fold this seam down and top stitch along the entire gusset of the bag. But I can just start at that seam, be okay. But yeah, I can see how that would definitely help the bag sit a little bit better. Technically, I mean, I could sew through the zipper tape. It's not gonna hurt anything. But I do feel a little bit silly for messing that up so bad when I should have just looked at the front picture. It's okay. Alrighty. So yeah, I'm gonna just top stitch through my zipper tape as well. I don't think it's gonna be the end of the world, and I'm literally just doing a cute little 1/8 inch seam allowance, just trying to pick a place to start. So folding that seam allowance in, will help all of that just sit nicely. And this is your chance to really test your skills. So you're top stitching on the gusset through the seam allowance. My forearms are really getting a workout here. And then I'm gonna pull my threads to the back to tie that off. And then this bag deserves a little TLC after this. Maybe a nice hot bath. So I jumped off my seam allowance a little bit over there, but not a big deal. Just really hoping above all else that this pocket does not look crooked in the end, because that is when you've really ruined a bag. So just kind of straighten that out. If you can iron it, couldn't hurt. But now I'm gonna go ahead and add the zipper. We're gonna be doing some more tying off, some more tricky business. I am absolutely living for the tiny little pop of rainbow in this. I think that looks so cute. Okay, so we're gonna be sewing along the bottom edge first. Yeah. And normally for me, you know, I love to just go around the whole thing, but Shannon told me to stop doing it. And I really respect her friendship, so I'm gonna stop doing it. Tail's nice and long. Pull that to the back. Now I'm like, am I doing it right? But yeah, I am. Okay, I'm cutting that one because I did backstitch and I can't get that thread to come through. Okay, and then you fold this flat, right? Yeah. Starting with your needle in the hole where the other one just came out of. Excuse me? My stitching was like right off the edge. Hilarious. What the heck? long tails, tie that off. And then we'll shut the pocket. I am wondering if I shouldn't have top stitched that though, because I still have that little bit of a loop. If it should have just been the flat edge, I don't remember. Again, it's not a method I use often, and it's 1 in the morning. Yeah, I feel like there's an extra little bloop of fabric there, but I'm like, what did I do that I don't normally do? Maybe it shouldn't have been turned on that side. But this pocket does get completely closed off since this bag is finished with binding, so I'm just gonna cut this even. Sewing that shut. Now I'll go to this side and then we'll close the bottom. All right, and that is completely closed. And it feels nice. So that is our front. Front, a little messed up, but it's okay. Technically, I could add a nameplate right there, but at this point now, I'm not sure if I want to claim it. Okay, so this is my front. Crap, I just dropped so much stuff. This is my front, so we want right sides together. And you want to, if your pieces have kind of changed in size, just like stretch it back out to fit. Just doing a little reconstructive surgery. It's been through some trauma. Oh Lord. I'm like, wait. Is it the wrong piece, or is it really this far off? Because I would almost believe it if I was told it was really this far off. Okay. So I'm kind of stretching it, but also letting it relax because it is likely that I was that far off in my rough cut. But we can also no, I must have been that far off because this is not too terrible. Yeah, that makes more sense now that it's wrong. It's fine. It's still super cute. All right, so let's go ahead and baste that together. Right along that top edge. I did not add any kind of pocket lining. And then we'll trim that excess. So there is the front panel completed. It looks, I don't think it's crooked, honestly, but it's hard to say because this is not quite what it should have been, but it's fine. I am going to make straps with locking slides. So I'm gonna have a little bit different task here. We need our webbing and little triangles and a little bit. For right now we need our back panel, our back cover, our hook. We don't need our zipper. Okay. So let me start with the pattern instruction. We've got this piece here. We're going to be folding long raw edges into the center. This is your back cover. And I actually think this is pretty interesting the way she has you put this together. Normally, I would like mark those things out and then place this, but she has you just sew the bottom. And I was like, oh, all right. I can do that. So she gives you a measurement and then just sew the bottom on. And I did not mark my center, so I'm going to do that now. And we're going to grab our hook piece. And this is going to be created like any strap, right? Following the same method previously. Now normally I like a faux rolled handle type situation, but I think it will be fine to just have it as a little 1/2 inch strap. So we're going to fold that in. And if you want to add like some grosgrain ribbon to that, you could as well. I think she only has you top stitch one side. Just doing both. Why not? We're here. And this is going to get placed like right at the center. And now I'm veering away from the pattern instructions. I've got these cut to 4 by 18. And I'm gonna fold this long raw edges into the center, giving myself just a little bit in the middle. One of these edges, I'm gonna fold under, just by a little bit, so that it's not raw. And clip that. And this is going to get slid into there. And this is like a little 4-inch piece of webbing and this locking slider. And we're going to fold that over this hardware, this webbing piece. You can also use like a separate vinyl piece if you wanted to secure that. But I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this down. I think this will add some nice padding as well, being that it's a little bit thicker. But there's nothing wrong with the webbing straps included in the instructions. Just be careful of the vinyl you use so that it's not too bulky. So there's one of our straps with that like locking slider. This is plenty secure for me, but you can also add a little rivet in the center of that area, or you could go ahead and add 2 rivets into that area if you wanted. Just be careful what you punch your hole with because you're going through 2 layers of webbing as well. And I'm just gonna add 2 rivets, 1 through each handle. I say like I've got the other handle done, but I don't. There we go. One more. All right, and then you're gonna be very careful when you make the next one to invert it, essentially. And you want to make sure that the teeth at the bottom are to the back because your webbing is going to slide over and under, and you want as much friction on the teeth as you possibly can. So I'm peeling that tape. I'm giving a little bit of room in the middle. Now, I don't know that I really care about what direction, but if you are worried about the direction with your print, you don't have to press that bottom edge completely flat until you figure out which one, because I want my folded edge to be facing in. So this is going to be my finished edge, or my raw edge at the top, and this will be my finished folded edge. And you can of course add tape or cut this a little bit differently if you need to, but I think that works out okay. And this is going to get inserted here. Oh, I folded it under, that's right, inside this area. And that just makes it so it's not sneaking out anywhere. But you do have to stretch that over the webbing ever so slightly. And you could also make it so that this is like a single or like a two-tone strap, and you could add just a little bit of vinyl to the top of webbing. I feel like I've seen some Loungefly backpacks like that, but again, I'm just double checking that these are inverse of each other. The folded edge is in the center. And I'm gonna start, I never do this, but I'm gonna start on the folded edge, especially since I've got it clipped where I need it to be. And then we're coming up to the direction we want to be in, going over, and then back up. Okay. So now that those are done, you want to make sure that when you put these straps in, that the hardware is face up in there. And I'm kind of angling that strap a little bit. But again, oh, need to add a rivet. I can do that. I can do that after, truly, very end of the bag. Rude. But yeah, so hardware pieces are facing up and over as if you were going to wear this on your back. And then we can stitch this in. I actually like this method of kind of doing it backwards to what I'm used to, because you can just press everything down to center it. And she does have you add 2 rows of stitching, 1 1/8 and 1 1/4. So cute. Get out of here. All right, I'm gonna add that rivet super quick. So using that locking slider means we do not need the slide adjuster or the square ring. It acts as both, but if you want to use them, you still can. Not a big deal. So we'll add our lining piece for that. The rough side is the wrong side. We're going to lay that together. And if you're going to add a name tag, you probably should do it now. I'm not going to. I'll add a woven label, it'll be fine. I will say I'm loving the way all of these materials together feels. So that's like a win in my book. Okay, so I'm going to trim all of this flat to match the size of our exterior vinyl. Going through our interfacing, lining, anything that's too big. So we're almost there. We still have to add our little triangle connectors. Now she has you add a scrap of interfacing into this little triangular piece. I know for a fact the vinyl I'm using is not going to be ripping, so I'm okay with it. But we're going to be folding up this notched edge. So I'm going to use 1/4 inch wide tape just right over that little cutout. And we're going to fold that down. Okay, and then we have these pieces of webbing here. So you're going to place that right along the edge, like that, and we're going to fold this over. And then leave that edge raw, or leave the raw edge as is, I would say. Leaving about 1 inch within that seam. All right, and then we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching. Oh, goodness. If you wanted to add that interfacing, it would not hurt, especially if you're not sure how your vinyl is going to hold up, etc. But 2 rows of stitching, definitely recommend. Just nothing too close to each other, and don't use a stitch length that's too small, otherwise you're just perforating your materials. trim off the excess. All right, and then if your fabric is directional, keep in mind whichever way you place these is going to matter, but this is not directional, and whatever way I place them doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that they're pointing up. Otherwise, this backpack is not going to be comfortable. There are some pattern piece markings you're going to want to follow. And then just to give you an idea of what this ends up doing, you literally just slide that through like that. We'll add a little end piece, but that's it. That's not going anywhere. And then you can even fold this end over once you've got it in there and do a quick little stitch. You could add a strap end or a little scrap of vinyl. And it's good to go. Yeah, so these are facing up. Okay. And then I don't have it in me to finish this tonight, but I am going to get the gusset done. But we've got our back and the front done, so I'm pretty excited about that. Now we've got a little gusset map to make. And I'm going to actually start by sewing my gusset pieces together. These are a 3/8 inch seam allowance, bottom edge, for lining and exterior. And then you're going to butterfly that seam open to top stitch. Oh goodness. Oh, okay, cool. I was like, this doesn't feel like it's, or based on what I saw, I was like, are my seams gonna look weird? But I think this looks good. Truly happy with the way my interfacing feels, and like it's structured, but it's got some give. Is nice. Alrighty. So since we have 2 zipper pulls, it's not really gonna matter how we start this. So I'm just gonna start it. I've also cut my zipper tape way longer than it needs to be. That's what I like to do. Because my zipper tape is a little wrinkly, I am stretching it ever so slightly to get it to fit along this panel. We're gonna repeat that here, and then it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance to put this together. right sides together over that zipper. Press that nice and flat. And I can feel that I'm sewing through my exterior and my lining. And I'm pulling that apart. My stitch length has been a 4.5 for all of this, and I'm not mad about it. I also prefer a 3/8 inch seam allowance on a zipper, but we're doing what we can. Okay, I'm also kind of centering that because I did not take that into account. So lining up those center markings, shimmying that up to the top to make sure my centers are still good, and just gently shaping that zipper tape along that curve. I'm pretty sure this is like a slight curve along this edge. It definitely didn't seem like a straight line, but maybe it is. And I just didn't cut it well enough. But everything seems to be fine. 1/4 inch. I'm curious if I wanted to use a 3/8, how skewed it would be, but then if you think about it, your whole panel is then going to be a 1/4 inch smaller than it should be, so don't do it. Pull, press, so that's nice and flat. The parachute knapsack from Sincerely Jen Patterns has like an angled zipper panel like this. As well. I don't know where I was going with that thought. No! Right out of bobbin. Yeah, I feel like I would have enjoyed a 3/8 inch or closer to on this a little bit more. I'm gonna try to tie off where my bobbin ran out. Or not. Just gonna melt it, press it, and hope for the best. Okay. These pieces do fit together like a glove. All right, so this is going to be a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but what I'm going to do is I'm gonna baste my exterior on at 1/8, just because I don't want that going anywhere. This is such a unique shape. Many things could happen, and I don't want them to happen. Make sure your zipper pulls are on. Mine are, thank goodness, but they almost weren't. I'll go ahead and trim that down. And just make sure it's not gonna fray over time. Oh goodness. My flame got away from me. Whoops. Okay, trim all of that, and then this needs to be right sides together, so you're gonna see your seam face up. And once we clip this on, that's when we can do the 3/8 inch seam allowance that this calls for. And like she says, when the pattern starts, you really need to watch your seam allowances. Right sides are together. Man, part of me is like, just finish the bag. Don't go to bed. Okay, and then we'll flip this so that exterior face out. Lining is right sides together. And make sure that you line up your bottom center seam, because we're gonna baste everything together. Oh, we're gonna top stitch this against the side. I'm like, oh no, why is that crooked? Oh, it's supposed to be. That's right, it's okay. And just be confident that you're not sewing through anything you shouldn't be, that your layers are flat. I normally don't top stitch through my lining, but I did this time. All right, and then we're just gonna baste all the way around. And I could have increased my stitch length so that that would go a little bit faster, but I didn't. And I am using my whole hand to make sure that my lining is staying flat. And then any little variance, we can just kind of trim down. Make sure you trim your threads. I knew my zipper panel would not be quite perfect because I rough cut it. So cute. I just want to finish it. All right, now I don't know if she says, okay, do front panel first, she says. And then keep in mind, there is a very obvious front and a back. So be mindful. Okay, there's my center on the front. You could even baste with a little stitch to keep that in place if you wanted, or staple. And then once I have that, kind of smoosh. Okay. Center bottom, very easy to find. And there are gusset marking pieces on your pattern piece, but generally I have found if I start clipping from the center down on either side until I get to the gusset and then keep kind of going, that it'll usually work out okay in the end. Keep in mind too, there is quite a bit of bulk in different areas, and if you are really worried that anything at all is going to move, then go ahead and staple. And as I'm pushing down to the bottom corners, I can snip just a little bit. So that I get a perfect fit in the bottom corner. Well, at least on one side I did. So cute. I'm so tired. So the way I will bind is I will do 1/4 inch. And then I'll bind at a 3/8. My arm is burning from that workout. Okay, I've just got a little bit in this bottom corner to trim off. I think that is okay. It's not too bad, hopefully. Everything seems okay otherwise. I don't want to bind this. I'm too scared. It's just so late. All right, I'm gonna put it together and I'm gonna bind it later. It's just kind of where I'm at right now. Okay, need to mark my bottom center. Now, if this is crooked, I'm okay with it. I really am. It's for me, and if it's not, I'll sell it pretty cheap and just know what to do differently next time, because this was just so many different times of being able to come down here throughout this week. Because I do want to flip this right side out before I go to bed. Okay, so like I mentioned, probably in a different video, clipping it the way I'm clipping it right now is not the best, especially if you know a pattern was designed in a different way. So like how I was just clipping this bottom gusset to this curve, like this in the round, I don't believe that's how this was designed. It was mostly designed, more than likely designed to go like this, where you make the gusset fit the panel, not where you make the panel fit into the gusset. So we're going to be snipping that along the bottom to get it to fit. So we'll be stretching that and leaving that back panel flat. And depending on which way you clip it, etc., is going to change the final outcome of the bag. So please keep that in mind and stay as consistent as possible when doing this. Oh. I must have stepped on that one earlier. Okay. So I'm going to start along the bottom first and work my way around like this, using about 1/4 of an inch. And then I've got my screwdriver, or you can use a stiletto if you want, just to kind of help you along with all of that. now I'm like, just bind it, and then you'll be done. All right, so I've just got a little bit to trim from the corners. It's not much. It's a little discerning, like, why am I trimming? But I was not as precise as I could have been when I cut this out, so that doesn't help. This poor bag. I'm like, just bind it. Just bind it. If I don't do it now, I'm never gonna do it. Just enough to do the whole thing. All right then. All right, I'm not using that wider binding. It's too late. But I am really excited because I don't have to do a whole lot more after I bind it. Like, I just need to thread that binding, webbing through. And, oh no, okay. I realized I never said why I had to leave, but Dorothy woke up, needed me to come to bed. So I had to go lay down with her. I did sneak back downstairs. All I did was tape the binding around the edge, bind that on, and then literally all you do is thread the webbing through those straps, and then I folded it over and under on itself and did a little tacking stitch, and that's it. All right, I was able to sneak back down here to finish this. I just added the binding my standard way. I just Evermore just grabbed it. I hope I caught that. Her grabbing it. I just added double-sided tape around my 1-inch wide binding, used a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then turned it. Everything fits so nicely. I wish I had a little slip pocket here, but maybe I'll make another one. I love the gusset and the shape of that. I don't think I would recommend doing both, but it doesn't look terrible. And my pocket, like, might be ever so slightly crooked, but I think it worked out okay. So I'm super excited. I definitely want to make more of these. Congrats to Georgia on a great pattern, and I have to go to bed.